It is a good thing we went to 2 services. Because it is packed up in here, and it was pretty full in the first one. This is a good thing, y'all. This is a good thing, yeah. I wonder if you have ever found yourself somewhere you quickly realized, I probably shouldn't be. My buddy is a huge NASCAR fan, Nick Wallace. He was one of our worship leaders at Impact Church, and huge NASCAR fan. He loves his favorite race car driver is A.J. Allmendinger. He had the pole yesterday and then finished like 32nd. Like, it was not great. But he started first, right? And he says, he actually tells me for years, he's like, I know A.J. A.J. and I are friends. And I'm like, sure you are, bro. A.J. races NASCAR. You don't know. And I used to tease him all the time until Nick took me to my first NASCAR race, and I got to see firsthand, that Nick knows AJ. That's AJ. Tiny little human. Tiny little man. But a very good race car driver. Not evidence of yesterday, but if it's a race course, anyways, if you know, you know. He's really good on the race course, not good on the oval. It's a thing. I didn't know that. But I got to meet him. And one time Nick was in Ohio at a racetrack, and Colleague Racing, who AJ races for, has their home track there. And he wanted to get there early. He went to the Colleague tent, so he thought, man, maybe I can catch AJ before the race, and I wish him good luck. So he goes in, and he quickly realizes he got a vibe. Y'all know what that vibe? You got a vibe. That's the kids say vibe now, right? That this is not really a to the public event. Meaning, most of the people in there were in like business casual, and Nick is in a pair of like jorts and a Colleague Racing team jersey. He's just like, whoops. Like this is the people that are supporting and making Colleague Race Team happen. Like, I shouldn't be here. And right as he's getting ready to try to slip out, AJ sees him. He's like, Nick, get over here. He's like, invites him deeper into the party. And he walks up. He's like, dude, I should not be here. He goes, puts his arm around him. He goes, get your phone out. Takes a picture. He goes, you're here now. And they're all here to see me. Take some free stuff. There's plenty to go around. There's more than enough room. There's more than enough room. Sometimes we find ourselves in the craziest of spaces. As Pastor Andy talked about last week, sometimes we find ourselves invited to the table of God, and we feel like we've got to clean ourselves up before we come there. And yet Jesus tells us that the Father runs to us when we're far off. He goes and finds us when we're a hot mess and says, get in here. Get in here. You're welcome. This is where you belong. I love the way that it reads in Romans 5 from the Message. We throw open our doors to God and discover at the same moment that he's already thrown open his doors to us. Get in here. There's more than enough room, bud. We find ourselves standing where we always hoped that we might stand, out in the wide open spaces of God's grace and glory, standing tall and shouting our praises. Jesus invites us to come to him. All of us who are weighed down with the garbage of life, all of us who are trying to find our value and our hope and our healing and the things that the world says is going to solve our problems, and yet we come back empty and we go, God, there's got to be something more. And Jesus says, there is. Come with me, and I will give you the rest and the healing that you've been longing for. Paul says, essentially, you've been invited to the banquet of the century. It is the party of all parties, and Jesus is the bouncer. The only problem is he is the worst bouncer that has ever lived. Because rather than trying to keep people out, he was trying to find people to bring into the deepest parts of life with him. And Jesus says, come follow me. And the invitation is to journey with him as we learn to live with him and for him and be changed by him. But what I love is how Pastor Rick closed this second service last week. He said, we aren't just invited to the table for the sake of being invited to the table. We're invited that we might be an invitation to others. It's the same thing he said to Abraham. You are blessed to be a blessing. At what point are you going to lean in and realize that God has given you everything that you need to live this life for Him? Jesus invites us to the bookends of the Gospels, which are simply discipleship. Come follow me. I will make you something more than you could ever imagine. And then let's go fishing. Let's go fishing. And yet so often I fear that we view our seat at the table as almost the finish rather than the starting line. Like, we're here, did it. God's cleaning me up. Everything's great. Everything's good. But Paul goes on in 2 Corinthians and he says, look, the love of Christ that we experience at the table ought to compel us. And it's like, great, Paul, what does it compel us to? It compels us to be his ambassadors. Well, what is an ambassador? An ambassador is somebody who represents this space in this space. An ambassador says, I am all about this and I'm for this and we are with this no matter where I am. Well, what are you an ambassador to? Well, he goes on to say, we are committed to the message of reconciliation. No matter where you are we committed as followers of Jesus to be a part of reconciling the world back to and for Him? Spurgeon said it this way, you're either a missionary or you need one. I feel like you didn't hear it. Because it's one of those, oh. You are either a missionary or you need one. And Jesus extends this invitation to all. And then the crazy part is this. Once we take a seat, we get real comfortable, we start to realize we're talking to everybody around us like, I cannot believe He's let us be here. This is crazy. Bentley, we're here. This is nuts. Just when we get comfortable. Didn't mean to hit you that hard, Chris. He leans in and he goes, hey, I know this is awesome, but let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be the salt. The salt that brings out the God flavors of this world. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors of the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this. As public as a city on a hill. It is not just let's get to the banquet and keep everybody out. It's let's get to the banquet and realize that He wants everybody in. We're going public with this. As public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop on a light stand, everybody with me? Like you mean it. Shine. All right. Yeah, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives, and by opening up to others, you will prompt people to open up to God, this generous Father in heaven. Jesus says, you are the light of the world. Now get about the business of shining. Be light. Reveal God to those around you. Bring out the God colors and flavors. Why? Because when you do that, other people are going to see Jesus. And I don't know if you remember, but Jesus is very attractive. Jesus is very exciting to be around. Jesus transformed our lives, and He ought to transform the places and spaces that we now go to. The Bible uses this idea of light, this metaphor of light, several different times throughout to kind of make its own point. We read that God is described as light. We read that His word is a light or a guide or a lamp unto our feet to actually help us live the way that we should live. In fact, there was a little beautiful sermon preached right here that spoke to that exactly. We realize that when we are in God's presence, to see His glory is to be exposed to light. Moses and the Israelites understood this as Moses come down with the glory of the Lord shining. And Jesus is called a light in a dark world. And now He looks at us, He looks at you and me, those who have said, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm putting my faith and my hope in Him. I've swung open the doors to God and realized He's already swung them open to me. And because I've done that, Jesus says, you are the light of the world. Now shine. The invitation is to be an invitation. You're invited to the table that you, in turn, might be an invitation to the world around you, an invitation to shine your light, to illuminate the beauty, the grace, and the colors that come from having a life with God, a relationship with God because of what Jesus has done in and through you. And because he's already done something in and through you, we now get, as Christ followers, to be a conduit of that grace and goodness to help show and guide and light people back to Christ. And so you didn't just come to the table as a response to the invitation to follow Jesus for your own sake. You did it that you might be an invitation. You're like, all right, Kory, let's go. Let's do it. Let's get up, get about it. The question is, how do we do it? It's a good question we have to consider. Because before we get too gung-ho, we need to remember that light, like darkness, has the ability to blind, disorient, has the power to ultimately take life. And so how we use our light is important. And as followers of Jesus, we've kind of fallen into two camps over the course of history. One camp, Jesus talked about it. If I set you on a light stand, am I going to put a bucket over you? Sometimes we do that. We shine our light where light is not needed. For example, if I've put a flashlight on in this room right now, it's not going to do a whole lot because many of us love Jesus. We're going to iron sharpens iron and all that, I get it. But if I just take my light to places that light already exists, it doesn't do a whole lot. So we go on, we kind of do that, we investigate, but then we get to spaces and places and we go, I don't know that I want people to ask me questions about this thing called faith because it's been a hard week and I don't know how I'm going to respond. I don't know if I have the right words or I'm going to say the right thing. I don't know if I even know how to say the right thing. I don't know enough about this thing called the Bible to respond properly. And so we just kind of don't do anything. And we put it in our bucket and do nothing. And the other way we do it is we shine a light right on them. We're going to expose you. Gotcha. Here you are. I can't believe you were doing that. I could never. Right? And that has an unfortunate response of freezing people and exposing them in ways that don't really do a whole lot of good unless it's for you. I was 18 years old. I think my buddy Jeremy was about 20. He bought a restaurant with his mom that was right by, there was a line of buildings. He bought a restaurant in this little hole in the wall. They named it Ma Kittle's, right behind his house. And I was staying at his house. We were doing something, and so just to give you the lay of the land. All of a sudden, we're trying to sleep. It's like 1, 2 in the morning, and I hear this. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know if that was the exact sound, but it was eerie and creepy, and it was in the wall next to my head. And I said, what is it? He's like, dude, I think I got some critter living in the attic or something. I'm like, well, that's the wall, bro, not the attic, number one. Number two, unacceptable. Let's figure this out, right? And so I'm like banging on the wall, and I hear it kind of scurry up, and I'm like, we got to find out what's going on. This is not happening anymore. So he's banging on the wall, and I go outside. I'm like, keep banging. And then sure enough, he hits a couple more times, and this little trash panda puts his head out from, trash panda's a raccoon for all of you who didn't grow up in the UP. And he looks down, and I'm like, keep banging! And he comes down, and we get him outside, and I say, get out here! And we chase him up a tree, and we're throwing rocks, and it's 2 in the morning. And it didn't take long before we hear the light sirens, the silhouette you never want to see, freeze! Let me see your hands. Like, ah! But cops do that. Officers do that. They pull you over. If you've been pulled over, don't raise your hand. Most of us have if we've been driven along. And they shine that light right in that rearview mirror so that it disorients you, blinds you, so they can see you, you can't see them, and then they walk up with a flashlight, license and registration. You know why I pulled you over? No, I don't. But they do it because they understand you're just as blind when a light is shined in your eyes as when you are in complete darkness. But the problem is light needs to interact with its surroundings in order to be effective. So if I took this headlamp and I turn it on, in this light room, it's kind of, you don't see much unless I point it at you, and you're like, ooh, I don't see Kory's face, but I see his cool blue shirt, right? But if I'm in a dark room and I shine it in this dark room, it is doing nothing for anyone except me. Light has to interact with its environment in order to be effective. So we need to be careful how we wield our light. Because in complete darkness, it's only benefiting me if I shine it out on or at the world or at people. And God doesn't call us to expose and isolate others with our light. He calls us to illuminate the darkness, but far too often, this is where it's going to get rough. It's going to. Oh, look at that over. Oh, there it is. Your politics don't match up. Well, nobody laughed or clapped at that one. Okay. All right. Oh, your preferences. Insert anything before preferences. They don't match up. Oh, that lifestyle, that relationship's a little suspect. And we highlight and we spotlight others so they don't see us. And that's not what we're called to either. Now, there is a difference. Got to kind of do a hard stop in the middle of that because some of you are like, wait, we're called to be light. That's what Jesus just said. Absolutely. What type of light are you being? But also, I love Jesus, giving my life to Jesus. I get the opportunity to serve here at Lifeway Church. It's awesome. I have submitted my spiritual, like our pastor, Andy. Look, Andy, if I'm getting out of pocket, if my life doesn't match up with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, godliness, and self-control, like if the fruit of the Spirit isn't coming out of me and I'm asking people to follow me as I follow Jesus, you better shine a light on my stupid because I've given you the permission to do so because we are in brotherly Christian love. That, my friends, is biblical accountability. It's loving. It's not harsh spotlighting. It's altogether different when we line up the hostages and ask people who are yet to be convinced of Jesus to act like they do. When we say, oh, I see what you're doing, and they're like, well, why would I do anything different? They don't know Jesus. They don't care about Jesus. And quite honestly, because we've done such a poor job of being light, they don't want to be or convinced or follow Jesus. Not everybody, but if you don't open your ears and hear what the world is saying to us, so there is a difference. But as much as we aren't called to harsh, bright spotlighting, it's also not our call to simply go out into the world and use our light, see some good stuff, and report back to everybody who already knows Jesus about how awesome it was, right? Or even people who don't and go, man, it would be amazing. Like it's like we go out to, I don't know, like the Grand Canyon, and we take a photo of it, and we bring it back, and there's no way for me to explain to you the majesty and splendor that is that place. It's unreal. Right? I always joke, I think if we get so mundane with things, I think if we lived at the rim of the Grand Canyon, about 3 weeks in, we'd go, yeah, it's just annoying. It takes 45 minutes to get anywhere, right? We wouldn't see. But Rob Tippy, some of you know, he hikes the Grand Canyon, and at the southern rim, you can see a little shack. And he's like, that's the shack we stay in on the last night. And I'm like, why do you stay there? Just come home. He says, it's 3 miles away. I said, shut your mouth. It's not 3 miles away. It's right there. He goes, if you decide to keep going right there, that's when people die. And I'm like, what? He says, it's all uphill. But we do that. We try to tell you about how beautiful that is. Maybe a better illustration is this, Niagara Falls. You go to Niagara Falls and you can't describe the, right? You get on the Maid of the Mist and you actually leave changed by the evidence of God's grace and goodness and his majesty. It washes literally over you. And you cannot communicate that by going and telling somebody, I went to Niagara Falls, it was amazing. You should go sometime, it's all this stuff. Until you experience it. And yet so often that's what we do. We go and rather than bring people with us, rather exposing them to Jesus, we just kind of tell them, oh yeah, it could be cool. Look what I did. A picture doesn't communicate. We're called to shine our light. Light needs to interact with its environment. And that's why headlights point on the road rather than the cars. When you're going, it illuminates. Too much light and concentrated focus, and you have a laser light that kills. You take that same amount of light and just let it disperse everywhere and find a big enough bucket to cover it, and it is completely ineffective. It does nothing. How we use our light matters. Do we simply light our own way and then report back to the world, oh, this is awesome, look what I got to experience? Or do we isolate and expose and freeze people in their tracks and in their sin? Or do we use our light to bring out the God colors that we see in the world? Our job is not to see people, point out their flaws, point out their sin, and just leave it at that. Leave them exposed and blinded. No, our job is to reveal the God colors in the world, to go say, hey, God is up to something in your life in spite of everything you're working through. Don't you see him here? Let me show you where he's working, not let me show you what you've done wrong. We'll get to that. But let's start with Jesus. We have to have grace and truth. And when we do, who do we find? We find Jesus. We find love. Sometimes we lead with grace. We better figure out how to communicate truth. And sometimes we lead with truth, but we better bring a good helping of grace. It's a both and it's not easy. That's exactly the type of life that Jesus calls us to in the next few verses of the Sermon on the Mount. And there are times in life when the reality of our world jolts us awake to its brokenness, and it's been talked about up here already, where people feel like they have a right to communicate and fight for their rightness. But Jesus says that's not the way we're to live. He says we're called to transform the world around us, not to join in with a world where people do whatever they want to do to get back at the person who's wronged them. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Jesus says there's a different way to live that actually lights up the world. He says, don't hit back. What? Don't get back at someone who's hurt you, even if it seems you have the right to retaliate. Are we ready to give up our right to be right? And Jesus, I don't like it. I don't feel like that does anything for me. He's like, great. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to point people to me. If someone takes something from you, offer up your best and give them that too. He goes on to say that people are all about loving their neighbor. And you're like, okay, great, that's easy. That's what he says. But what do we do when somebody is actively against us? Jesus says, not so with you. Not so with you going after them. Instead, live like the children of God that you are. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Pastor Rick said it. We prayed for it. Do we believe it? Do we remember that God gives his best to everyone? God gives his best to everyone. Insert the person you like the least. God loves them. Sorry. Not sorry. I'm not saying it's okay what they did or didn't do. If they loved you well or loved you poorly. But God loves them, and we need to act like they matter to us too. His grace is available to everyone, the good, the bad, the nice, and the nasty. I love the way the message wraps this up. It's so to the point. In a word, what I'm saying is grow up. You're kingdom subjects. Now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously and graciously towards others the way God lives towards you. As Christ followers, we get to help out in this world by helping people see true beauty and the flavor and the places and the spaces, and most importantly, in and with the people that God allows us to interact on a day-to-day basis. We're light bearers, and that means we cast light around us, not simply for my own benefit, not for people to see me, not for people to see Pastor Andy or some other church leader, but to see Jesus, that beauty can be revealed and lives can be transformed. A couple years back, New Haven High School lost power in the middle of the day. There was 1,100 students and staff in rooms that didn't have windows, and I knew my wife was about to lose her mind. So what I did, my wife was the assistant principal at the time, is I grabbed a case of water and I ran to New Haven High School. Why did you get a case of water, Kory? Great question. I'll explain in a minute. But what I will tell you what I didn't do. I didn't grab my headlamp and run in and go, hey, Look at that. Yeah, the power's out. It actually is. Sorry. Bet you wish you had a light like mine. Deal with it. No, I didn't go in and point out the problem to everybody and then go, I hope somebody does something about that. And yet so often I think that's what we do. We go, man, that is a mess. I hope somebody does something about that. What I did is I went to each classroom and I gave the teacher a bottle of water and I told them to turn their flashlight on. And then we simply sat a water bottle and illuminated the light they already had. There is something about when we use the light that we have and point it in the right direction so that people see Jesus that changes our environment. Jesus says, let me tell you why you are here. You are here to be light. Funny what happens when we point our light at the living water. Jesus knows we shine brightest when we're pointing at him. And so if I want my light to be effective in the world around me, then I must understand that I don't live my life for me so that I can see, in me only. But I have to open up my life to the world so that they in turn might see and experience Christ and open themselves up to him. Ephesians 5, 1 and 2 says, you can bring them down, you're gonna get tired, I know. Ephesians 5, 1 and 2 says, do as God does. After all, you are his dear children. Let love be your guide. Christ loved us and offered his life for us as a sacrifice that pleases God. And so we remember how God loved us and we live like it. We remember that God didn't hold anything back from us, and so why are we holding back anything from others? 8 and 9, later in chapter 5 say this, you were once darkness, but now you are light in the world. So live your life as children of the light. Light produces fruit that consists of every sort of goodness, justice, and truth. Another translation says, get on with it. Get on with it. Do the good, the right, and the true. Find what pleases God and do it. And so our job is not to be the light. It's not to highlight somebody else who's super godly. Our job is to point people to Jesus, that they might experience the God flavors and the God colors of this world, transforming them and the world around them. We're not called to, the term came to be the gatekeepers of the gospel. And so often we get to the table and we're like, this is awesome. And God says, that one. And you're like, I don't know if you're right, God. And we forget that maybe somebody had that same thought about me. But for God. We are called to speak the gospel always. Always. Mark Wilson, professor down at SWU, Southern Wesleyan, he wrote a book called Purple Fish. I would recommend it. He says, we were made for a mission. God pours blessing into our lives so we can turn around and bless others. Jesus said, as the Father has sent me, I'm sending you. Jesus practices catch and release. He fishes for us and then sends us fishing. He seeks us to save us and then mends us to send us. Look, every one of you might have heard this, every one of you is not called to be an evangelist. But every person who has said yes to Jesus is called to live their life in a way that's evangelistic. Always be ready. Always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have in Christ Jesus. That's what Peter tells us to do. And so what do we do with all this? Well, I think there's a couple things. The first thing is this. Remember who lit the way for you. Who was the person that pointed you to Jesus? My wife's family is a huge part of that. My wife is a huge part of that for me. Scott Blair is a huge part of that for me. And so I've called him in the past. Scott, dude, I'm thinking about you today. You've blessed me in ways I cannot fathom. I am the man I am today because you walked me through what it means to actually follow Jesus. Thank you, bro. When's the last time you called the person who invited you to the table and said, can you believe that we're here? Let them know. The second thing is this: who in your life do you know right now is catching a little bit of your light anyways, and maybe you need to start being a little more intentional with it? Who are the people in your life that are already in your sphere of influence that see your light and maybe now it's time to be intentional? Ask God to do something. You might be like, what do I do? I'll show you what you do. You take one of these blue cards that are for Back to Church Sunday, and you go, I don't know what to do. Give them a card to say they belong here. We've been invited to be an invitation. There's a whole bunch of them out at the welcome desk. I want to real quickly wrap up with 5 real practical steps that you can do. That the Ferguson boys up at Community Christian Church in Chicagoland, they came up with this. It's built off of Abraham's blessed to be a blessing. The first thing is this: we begin with prayer. Begin with prayer. God, who is in my life that's already there that I can do something with? And fill me up that I might be poured out. And then we begin to listen with care. And we listen with our ears, but sometimes we listen with our eyes, and we respond to the prompting of the Holy Spirit. And you might find yourself like this, standing out at the corner. And I don't know a lot, but I'm pretty sure that's a Walmart building. But that's Cole. He just didn't tell anybody. He just showed up and said, look, you are loved. Doesn't matter what you believe. Doesn't matter if your politics match up, your religion matches up. You matter to God, so you matter to me. It could be a simple, practical thing that says, I love Jesus. There's a cross right there on his backpack, and you are loved. Third thing is eat. How many of you are going to eat today? You might be fasting. Or one day this week, right? So eat with somebody. Invite them to the table, quite literally. Maybe it's a cup of coffee, whatever it is. Get outside of your comfort zone. You're going to eat anyways. Might as well not do it alone. The other thing is serve. Serve in love. Be attentive to the needs of those around you. Find opportunities to step in and just be Jesus. And lastly, when you've done those things, you've earned the right to share your story. This is who I was before God. This is how I met him, and this is how he changed my life. You're either a missionary or you need one. Mark Wilson finishes this way: every broken life has a potential for mission. Everyone you meet, regardless of how wretched their life may seem, is a missionary in the making. Let me tell you why you are here. You're here to be light, so shine. Your life, the way that you live for Christ and point people to him, might be the only Bible they'll ever read. Father, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for your grace and your goodness, that we are changed by you, for you. We've been invited to the table, not just for ourselves, but that we can experience you and then point people to you. Help us to be light in a broken and dark world. Only you can do it. It's in your name we pray. Amen.